I've got some exciting news, and that's that I recently switched podcast host to Anchor. Now, if you don't know what a host is, it's what distributes your podcast, which means it becomes available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Now, the best part is it gives you all the creation tools to make your podcast. So if you need to edit it, if you need to record it, you can do that all in one place from your phone or computer. Another awesome thing is it's free. I was actually paying to host my podcast before, but now I can host it for free. And you can start making money immediately by recording an ad just like this one. You don't have to wait till you get a certain amount of listeners. Now, if you're like, that sounds awesome, I want to create my own podcast, then make sure you download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. This is the Daily Steps Towards Success podcast. I'm Kayla Celeste. If you're looking for a daily podcast to help you accomplish your dreams, you're in the right place. So let's take the daily steps towards success together. On today's podcast, we're actually going to be talking about why you have to plan in advance. Now, if I asked you what you're going to get done tomorrow, you're going to have all these great ideas, right? And you're really going to have your future self in your best interest. And so what that looks like is you're like, you know what? I'm going to get up on time. I'm going to make my bed. I'm going to do all my habits. I'm going to work on my most important tasks. Like, you're going to have all these great ideas, right? But if I asked you, what are you going to do in the next hour? I'd be like, oh, you know what? I don't really think I'm going to get anything done. Or if I ask you, what are you going to do for the rest of the day? You might not have your future self in your best interest. In fact, you might have immediate gratification. Because what happens is, in the moment, you don't want to delay gratification. See, you don't mind delaying gratification for your future self tomorrow. Tomorrow, you're like, oh, she'll be fine. She can delay the gratification, but right now, I don't really want to. And so you make better decisions for yourself 24 hours in advance than you do in the moment, because in the moment, you're wanting immediate gratification. In the future, you're wanting to have your future self in your best interest. So in the future, you want to delay the gratification. And so what ends up happening is, if you make a plan 24 hours in advance, then you're making better decisions for yourself. Then all you have to do in your current situation is actually follow through on the plan. So here's an example. While I was planning out these podcast episodes, I had decided ahead of time to actually plan for 1 hour. So I was going to plan out podcast episodes for 1 full hour. Well, then when I showed up to do that, I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to show up. I'm going to plan for 1 hour. So I actually did start on time. But then 30 minutes into planning, I really wanted to take a break. I was like, you know what? An hour's really long. Like, maybe we should do something else. I can change task and reschedule the rest of this hour for later. And so what ended up happening is I was like, planning out my podcast episodes. I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's a really good idea. I should just schedule the rest of this. Like, an hour's really too long. Like, I've got other things I want to do, like that kind of thing. And I'm like literally talking myself out of it. But then I started planning out this episode, and then I was like, oh, wait a second. That's what my brain's doing. And so I recognized this while actually planning out this episode. And then I was like, oh, I know what my brain's doing. It's trying to get me to give in to immediate gratification and not delay the gratification of having this podcast episode out. And so then I was like, that's not happening. And so I kept on moving forward with my original plan. And so this is why it's important to, one, plan in advance, because you can really get the most important things done when you plan in advance. But the second thing is, you have to recognize that your brain is going to try to talk you out of it, and you have to overcome that. And so when you plan in advance, you're setting yourself up for success, because it's so much easier for you to convince yourself to delay the gratification and do what you plan in advance when you're like, oh, I already have a plan. But if you don't have a plan, like if I woke up today and I didn't plan to record podcast episodes, the chances of me getting up here and recording podcast episodes were pretty slim, because I didn't plan to do it in advance. And then all you have to do in the moment is actually manage your brain so that you follow through. It's so much easier for me to plan to record the podcast episodes and then manage my brain than it is for me to decide to record podcast episodes today. Now, there's nothing to manage if you don't plan ahead of time. So like I said today, if I was like, you know what, if I hadn't planned recording podcasts ahead of time, and I was like, what should I be doing right now? It probably wouldn't be recording podcast episodes. So what I want to encourage you to do is plan in advance and then manage your mind drama, manage your brain around showing up and getting it done. Because like I said, your brain is going to try to talk you out of it. So you need to plan in advance so that you can actually talk your brain out of talking you out of getting it done. Thank you for listening to the Daily Steps Towards Success podcast. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. After all, we're in this together, one step at a time.